Hello everyone, and today we will be taking a look at a case file that shocked an entire village in the Middle East. This is a true story of a girl who was possessed by a jinn. This case is one of the most famous cases of jinn possession ever recorded, and has had many scholars and researchers scratching their heads trying to understand what really happened to this poor girl. Before we get into it, don't forget to subscribe for more videos. And with that out of the way, let's begin. Her eyes were glowing red, and she didn't seem to recognize any of her family members. And it was at this point that her family knew something very bad had happened. The year is 1980, and the location is the Middle East. They hoped that once there, whatever it was that had possessed her would leave her alone. Unfortunately, this wasn't the case. As soon as she stepped inside the mosque, she began to scream and shout. She said that the girl wasn't possessed by just one entity, but by several. When she came to, she said that the Jinni wouldn't leave, and that she couldn't force them out. At this point, they needed help from someone with more power. She said that there were 3 Jinn inside the girl, 1 that was good and 2 that were evil. She smashed up the idols that people had placed inside the mosque, and even tried to climb up the minaret. In this case, the good jinn changed its shape and impregnated the girl while she was possessed by the other 2. She married and had more children, but sadly, she died at a young age along with her husband. There are many other stories like this one that have happened throughout history, but unfortunately, we don't have evidence to prove that they are true. What happened to her children is unknown, but they should still be alive today. This is why the girl became pregnant and eventually gave birth. Miraculously, she didn't fall and cut herself, even though she was around 60 feet high up. Well, I think this story matters because it shows us that even the smallest of things can be possessed by demons. The existence of jinn is a fact. They are just as real as you and me. In fact, the Quran talks about jinn in great detail. It's a well-documented fact that at least one girl in history has been possessed by a jinn. In this case file, there was one good jinn that protected the girl from the evil ones. It might surprise you to hear that not all jinn are evil. In fact, the Quran says that jinn have free will just like humans do. This means that some of them choose to follow the path of righteousness, while others choose to follow the path of evil. We don't know how common this is, but it definitely happens from time to time. It says that they are created from smokeless fire and that they can change their shapes at will. Jinn are all around us, and it's only a matter of time before we come across one. Sure, there are some big demons out there that possess people and make them do terrible things, but there are also small demons that cause much more subtle problems. You see, the good jinn that Muhammad allowed to stay inside the girl claimed that the baby was impossessed by any demons. This may lead you to believe that the baby was conceived naturally, but I can tell you that this isn't the case. The girl in this case file gave birth to a baby boy who was conceived naturally by a jinn. In the end, the girl was able to live a normal life and even had more children. This goes to show that no matter how bad things might seem, there is always hope for a better future. This goes to show that jinn are just as capable of having children as humans are. He performed the exorcism, but once again, the jinn refused to leave. They can make it hard for you to get out of bed in the morning or stick to your diet. One of the best ways to deal with these negative emotions is to reach out to a mental health professional. They can teach you coping mechanisms and help you come up with a plan to overcome your challenges. They can make you feel like everything is pointless and that nothing you do will ever matter. In these situations, it's important to remember that you aren't alone and that there is help available. This time they taunted him, calling him names and saying that they would never leave. Muhammad became angry and raised his voice, telling them to leave or he would call upon God to smite them. Just knowing that you have someone to turn to can make a huge difference. No matter what you're going through, please remember that there is hope. With the right support, you can overcome anything. The name of the girl possessed is unknown, but she is known to have been a very religious girl who prayed 5 times a day like every other Muslim. At this point, her family had had enough. They took her to an old woman who lived on the edge of the village. Everyone believed that the woman had special powers and could help cure their ailments. In this case, they wanted her to perform an exorcism. When she returned home, she told her family that she had gone to visit her grandmother in the next town. However, when her family arrived at her grandmother's house, they found out that she hadn't been there at all. So then they went to the local police to report her missing. After searching everywhere they could think of, the police and her family were no closer to finding her than when they first started looking. It begged Muhammad to allow it to stay inside the girl's body so that it could protect her from the other 2 jinn. Muhammad agreed, and that's how one of the evil jinn got trapped inside the girl forever. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. She also fasted during Ramadan and read the Quran every day. The girl lived with her family in a small village where she was well known for her piety and goodness. When he cried out in pain, she laughed maniacally and said, "Who is hurt? Who is hurt?" Clearly something evil had entered her body and possessed her mind. One day, the girl went missing for 2 days. He told them that, in his professional opinion, she wasn't insane, but that she was perfectly healthy. 2 days after she had initially gone missing, she turned up back at her family's house. But this time something was very wrong. When her brother touched her to try and see if she would react, she lashed out and scratched him badly. Her family took her to a nearby doctor who examined her and said that he couldn't find anything wrong with her. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the valley, the family decided to take her to the local mosque. After some time, she climbed down and left the mosque. When the old woman looked into the girl's eyes, she screamed and told her family to run away fast. The old woman began the exorcism, but soon passed out. They traveled to another village to find a man named Muhammad, who was a well-known exorcist. Just as he was about to do this, one of the jinn spoke up. After this, she became pregnant and gave birth to a baby boy. But this is where things get really weird. You see, the thing about jinn is that they can change their shapes at will. Sometimes they appear as humans, and sometimes they appear as animals. The girl, who is now free of the jinn, lived a normal life. Some people might read this story and think that it's not true because it involves magic and otherworldly beings. But I assure you that this story is true. But why does this story matter? Why should you care about a girl being possessed by a demon? For example, there are demons that can make you feel lazy or unmotivated. It might be hard to admit that you need help, but it's always worth asking for. If you don't want to go to therapy, then try talking to a trusted friend or family member. And now we now look at some of the lessons we can learn from this case file. Lesson No. 1. Jinn are real. Lesson No. 2. Jinn can possess people. If you think being possessed by a demon is a myth, then this case file should change your mind. Lesson No. 3. Not all jinn are evil. Just because something comes from fire doesn't mean that it's automatically evil. Lesson No. 4. Jinn can have children. Even though jinn are supernatural beings, they can still have children. Lesson No. 5. There is hope. Even though this case file involved a lot of death and destruction, there is still hope. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more videos and leave a like if you enjoyed it.